record on the computer. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm going to fill you in on the Bob Billings Big Year Award. And what I'm seeing and what you guys are seeing. Here it is. There we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you all through the history, the rules, the winners. So we have myself, Deb here, BQ. Marty, where are you, Marty? There you are. And Marty. And Ken. We already know about Ken. Okay. And then I'll take you through some little interesting facts about the numbers. Okay. So first, as you've heard, it all started, and Bob had this wonderful idea that it would be a neat thing to have a contest where a person would get $200 if they got the most birds seen in the Delaware Valley area. Okay, it was just a wonderful idea. And, you know, what he did is in his will, so that's the shame of it, is that it's in his will. And he donated the $2,000 to start this award. Okay, and it's the person who has recorded and identified the largest number of birds during each prior calendar year. And you can see the letter that Liz sent to the club in that year, which was 2010. So you can see we have those that are on Zoom. The picture that you are seeing in the presentation, we actually have a picture, a framed picture here. And to fill you in, who was John R. Bob Billings? Okay, he was a member of the DVOC for 44 years. Okay, from 1965 until his death on August 18th. He was the lab technician for Roman and Haas, and that's the picture you're seeing there. Okay, Roman and Haas, for those outside of the area, was right here in the Philadelphia area, and a big chemical research facility there. On the birding side of things, he was well known for being the compiler of the Pennypack Valley Christmas bird count, and he did that from 1980 to 1995. And what's interesting is that the reason he got really interested in birds is because he was a caddy on a golf course. For me, I've had the opposite happen. You know, I'm not a golfer, so I'm at the golf course and I'm looking at the birds. But that's what got Bob into it. You know, he was caddying and he noticed the birds and he really got into it. And so then from there, he got himself a field guide. He got himself binoculars. And then he joined the Pennypack Bird Club in the 1950s. And he went on a lot of local trips. And from all accounts, including Liz, what really sparked his interest was a trip to the Jersey Shore, right? And then he joined the DVOC in 1965. And the DVOC went to a lot of different places. And you can see him there, you know, Texas, Illinois, New England, and it got cut off there when I added the picture. But the other one was the trip to Alaska, and they actually chartered a plane. So that was really cool, you know. And he was an avid lister, and he had detailed notes for all his birding trips. And I think this is, I'm guessing this is how he got the idea, is like, find how many birds you can do in a year type deal. And then we have Liz and Karen here as Bob's wife and daughter. And Liz, you're originally from British Columbia, huh? That's very cool. And she met Bob in the spring of 1955, and by August they were married. And then I'm so glad that somebody read my notes, because originally this like Karen was driving, but she accompanied her parents on a round trip, and they went from Philly to Liz's family home, and they birded the whole way. And you still remember that, huh?
Stopped and never
And it's just a pleasure that every year they get a chance. They come to the DVOC meeting when the award is given out. So we appreciate you guys coming every year. So thank you. Okay, so how did this get, okay, so we have this request, and the club really wanted to honor Bob's wishes. And one of the things it said, it was going to be up to the club to determine how this was going to happen. Okay, so at the time, the president was Frank Winfelder, and he tapped Art to head up the committee. And Art got together some other people there, and you can see the original Billings committee there on the top. And so one of the first things they did is they said they wanted to name the competition the Bob Billings Big Year Award. Okay, so then the next thing is the committee was thinking, you know what, we really want this to go on in perpetuity. So what do we need to do? And Art figured out how much money would need to be raised. And so it was really important for the committee, because they wanted Bob's name to go on in perpetuity. So they sent out a notice to the members and said, we want to do this, and please make a donation toward the Bob Billings Big Year Award. That's a tongue twister, but and so what happened is then Hart and Jewel Ruth saw that, and they said, okay, if people are going to give, we'll challenge you. So they had a 1-to-1 challenge donation, and then that's how the other members of the club donated all various amounts. There were some other big donors, and it all got pulled together, and now it's in the hands of the trustees, and there's enough money there for this to go on in perpetuity.
I took a look actually at the trustees report. Liz had asked, and it has $5,275.
Yes, it does. So that, to answer your question, that's how we're keeping this going year after year. And so what we're doing is we're using the interest and not, staying away from the principal, so that this can continue into perpetuity.
Just a footnote to that, the number that you just quoted, that's the total of the donations. It's deposited by the trustees in various interest-bearing accounts, and that interest, of course, compounds. So 200 comes out of the fund every year, but the excess in earnings gets plowed back into investments. So the total amount of the fund is actually still growing.
That's great. So you met your objective there, Art. And so now you can see the current Billings committee there on the bottom, and they are the people who oversee the competition every year. So just a little bit about Jewel and Hart Ruth. I actually talked to them the other day. They're down in Florida, and they provided the challenge grant for the Billings Award. So Jewel, she was one of the first women in the club. She joined in 1985, and now she's a member for 38 years. And in talking with her, she first started with backyard birds. And then she saw a newspaper article from her alma mater that there was going to be an ornithological class with field trips. And so she took that and she was hooked. And so she's been birding ever since, and she is a life member of the DVOC. Then Hart, this was another interesting story, sort of like Bob's, where he started as a caddy. Hart started out as a Boy Scout, and at the time, there was nobody really birding. The only other person birding it happened to be his Scoutmaster, and there was a badge, so he went for the birding merit badge in 1944, and he and his Scoutmaster would go out and look at birds early in the morning. Scoutmaster would go to work, and Hart would go to school. So he was DVOC president in 94 and 95. And so, as most people know, he, first year secretary, then VP, and then president. So he won the Whitmer Stone Award in 2016. He's a fellow of the DVOC, honorary member, life member. And sometimes it's in the Weekly Digest. He writes the heartbeat for the St. Lucie Audubon Society. And he said he thinks he has more people reading it in this area than down in Florida. Okay, so the rules. Okay, so it's number one, it's to distribute the annual sum of $200 to the individual, and that is determined by the DVOC. So that's where this all started. And then Art and the rest of the committee came up with the rules. And if you want to see everything in depth, go to the website. This is one of the times, all our meetings, all our field trips are always open to non-members. This is one of those times where you must be a DVOC member to compete. And the bird can be seen or heard as long as it's identified. And you can see, and I really like, Ken, I loved your chart where you saw had all the different birds and numbers of where you saw them. And the reason this was picked, it was to level the playing field, because we have such a range, and it's great, such a range of members. And, and so they wanted to keep it within the Delaware Valley area, so that somebody who goes to Africa and gets 300 birds in a day, so this was what was chosen. Okay, so it's basically Eastern Pennsylvania, most of New Jersey, except for the Northeast and all of Delaware. Okay, so then for documentation, there is a list out there. It's also on the website. It lists the birds by state. And if a particular state, that bird is considered rare, and you saw it in that state, then you have to provide documentation to the club. And Art, you want to describe a little bit how you go about doing it these days?
Okay, the list is really the sum of the official bird lists of the 3 states, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. So if the bird is on the official list of any of those states, then fine, you can check it off, put it on your list. If it's not on any of those, if it's not on the official list of the state where you saw it, you have to provide a rare bird report form. And if it is on the list of that state, but that state says this is on the review list, or you need additional documentation or whatever, then also you have to fill out a rare bird report form. And so on that form, then basically you give the documentation to show that that's what you saw.
Thanks.
And when you hand in your list at the end of the year, then you also hand in your rare bird report forms, and the judges, who are the members of the committee, who are looking over your checklist, they look at your rare bird report. One key thing, we simplified everything through the years has been simplified and massaged, just based on experience. And one thing that we simplified on the form, and I have one here, so I'll read it to you. It asks you to describe what you saw. So this is item 6. Okay. Please give details as briefly or as extensively as you think appropriate to support your citing. Please remember that these details will be reviewed by the judges when determining if your citing will be accepted. Thank you. So for example, a couple of years ago, a brown booby showed up in New Jersey. Everybody saw it. Okay, so you don't need to say much there. But if you put a California condor on your list, questions would be asked. So you need to say more than that.
Thanks, Art. Okay, so here are the winners by year. And you can see we've had quite a list of winners. I'm going to take you through all of them. Okay, so you get to meet the winners. And Deb, BQ, Ken, you already said something. Marty, if you want to say anything when we get to yours, feel free. Like I said, I wanted to keep this, easy meeting. So you can see it's been varied from 369 to 257. So,
If I could interject there, the
yep.
low numbers were COVID years.
Yes.
No pelagic trips.
Yep. Exactly. There were. And so I guess Debbie and myself have won it twice. Okay. You can win it twice, but you can't win it 2 years in a row. Okay. So here's the very first year. And I pulled all this stuff off the website. So like if you go into the website, all this information is there. And if there was a special note, I also added it to these slides. So in 2011, it was Mike Fritz, and he had 363 species. Then in 2012, it was Ken Tishner. He had 369. And you can see in both of those years, there were special call outs because people came close. Okay. And then in 2013, Linda Widdop and Patty Wren, they won at 356. So you can check out some of those really cool shots there. And there's the obligatory photograph of everyone.
Not the same list.
Huh?
Just so you know.
What's that?
Like the two of them tied, but they did not have the same list. They were.
Yep, they didn't have the same list. You are correct. So, and then how do you like this one? So there's Patty and the little doll is in the background.
Yeah.
And then you have, I love this one too. There's the lapwing. Hopefully it's not going to get trampled on there in the field. So, and then Linda's not here. I can't even, so anyhow, pelagic anyone? So this was one of the years, and Art, you're correct. Without pelagics, the numbers tend to be lower because you can get more. So besides the counties, oh, and I neglected to say that. Besides the counties, it's also the waters as defined by New Jersey and Delaware. It'd be hard to do. It would hard to do the ocean waters of Pennsylvania, wouldn't it?
No, they remain undefined.
Yeah. So 2014, Marty, you got anything to say? Here's, look, you can see the photographs there.
Really?
That's fine. That's fine.
This return was probably, if I remember right, that was right after pelagic. So we got on a pelagic and papers and we got the photos. Just lined with people looking at the whisker.
The whisker turn.
And then people launching their launchers.
Yeah. For those people on Zoom, if you couldn't hear Marty, he was talking about the whisker tern there. And he had just gotten off of pelagic. And they didn't see one, they got on shore and there was one. And then this was a Smith's longspur. Yeah, and then I love the bonies too, the picture of the Bonaparte skulls. 2016, that was myself. I had 317 birds. A little bit, my list skewed. I went back and looked at my PowerPoint slide that I did, like Ken had one. And I would call it the Cape May effect. 288 out of the 317 birds I found in Cape May. Now, it also helps that I have a house in Cape May, for those that don't know it. And in fact, so that white-winged dove is sitting in my pine tree. So, and this was the rock wren up in North Jersey. And actually, the mountain bluebird, I know it's not a very good picture. This was a really cool place. It was out by Doylestown. And this is what got me started on the Billings that year. Because I saw that bird. I had never seen a mountain bluebird before. Favorite color is blue. I go up there, it's a thunderstorm. Oh, I'm already like 2-3 hours from home because I live in New Jersey. So I continued on, and they had a checklist. And they asked everybody to sign in, and thank goodness it was in plastic. This thunderstorm comes through, stops, the bird comes out, and then it thunderstorms again. So I was lucky enough. And then you have the brewer's blackbird there. So, but that was my spark. I wouldn't say my spark bird, it was my spark Billings bird. Okay, Debbie, you were 2017. I remember you going. You have any
Yeah,
memories?
just, well, the rock run at the end of your year got me thinking about doing the Billings. I'll just say it started out awesome. Like the first 3 days I had rock wren, pink-footed goose, barnacle goose, sandhill crane, crested caracara, and a white pelican on the first 3 days. Yeah, so
First 3 days?
First 3 days, those were the days when.
Wow.
And I was working full time, working really hard. There were many days where I went, like, I drove to Cape May so many times, like I could do it blindfolded, and I would be back in the office by maybe by 10. They knew what I was doing, and they were like, "You're where? You've already driven 200 miles, and it's office time." But it was a really awesome year. I learned a ton. It was kind of, social media was big, but social media is huge. Like I signed up for every alert, and I was like, "Okay, share information, please." So my favorites were Common Green Shank. I know everyone remembers the Common Green Shank at 3. It made the news, caused a traffic jam. I also found an ear grebe the day I was looking for the Common Green Shank, so I was happy because I found it myself. Black-backed Oriole up in Berks County was another mega. People got on airplanes to come see that bird. And I love the white-winged tern. So my strategy that year was to basically not leave the area and do everything on eBird. So you always know your number because you just look at your eBird account. But I left the area in the middle of the year in August to go chase the white-winged tern, Pennsylvania's first record in Tioga County. So it wouldn't count. So never thought I'd get that bird, but I was like, okay, my eBird is +1. And then October 8th of the big sit at
The big
Heinz
sit,
Refuge.
yeah. I remember
A
that.
bunch of us were there, or we came running. It was the middle of the day, it's like that midday lull, and my partner Adrian Binns yells out at the top of his lungs, "Marsh, turn!" We're all like half asleep, and he's calling out field marks, and it was the white-winged tern. And it took about a full maybe 5 minutes before we're like, should we tell somebody? Like now, this would be on Telegram in like 1.5 seconds, but
Yeah.
But that was, so then I got to count the white-winged tern.
There you go.
Big bird, so it was awesome. So,
Yeah.
and thank you, Barb was a huge help. I was texting Barb all the time. I went to Barb's house. And,
Cape May connection.
yeah, it was, and many other folks here.
Yeah, a lot of people, yeah. And that's the other part too, is for those that haven't done it yet, if you let people know that you're doing it, we have such an awesome birding community. So if you do decide to do this, let people know, and they will help you out.
Meet a lot of people.
Yeah, you meet a lot of people. Yeah. And, and sure, it's a competition and, that we've had co-winners and, like Patty and Linda won together, they started off competing and then they ended up making sure they had the same number. If I remember the story correctly.
And my number was 353, which my goal
Oh.
was 350. And I did miss 3 pelagics because in the beginning I was like, I'm not getting on a boat. I hate boats. I puke. So I missed a February pelagic. Had I gone on it, I would have had 3 more birds. I did get on a pelagic right around Christmas. And you pay a lot of money to puke and feel. But I did get 3 birds out of that pelagic. And my last bird was New Year's Eve, LeConte sparrow.
Oh, cool.
So it was the very last day of the year.
There you go. January 1st to December 31st. Okay, so then the next person was Sandra Keller. Sandra, a lot of people of you know here, has been she was always a big New Jersey birder, member of the DVOC for a long time. She's now living out in Ohio, and she is still chasing. And now, she's put her sights on Ohio. So I talked to her, and these were her quotes. She had a blast, like we've all been saying. And she said it was so much fun exploring the Delaware Valley and finding places that she hadn't birded before and meeting people. So that was hers some. Whoops. Okay, then in 2019, this was a surprise to me. I gave Art my number and he came back and said, you won. I was like, what? So there were some really cool birds that year. And the picture here on the left, it doesn't really do that bird justice. That is a gyrfalcon, okay, on a osprey nest. And if you would see the osprey next to it, the osprey looked minuscule. And believe me, he didn't stick around. So this was, I'm pretty sure it was Dustin Welsh that found this. And this is one of those birds where you would need other people to tell you, only because unfortunately, people try to capture certain birds. Gyrfalcon's one of them. So it's hidden on eBird. And it doesn't get reported on hotlines. And this was out at Nummi Island, down between North Wildwood and Stone Harbor. So, and it was out in the marsh there. We were talking, the last several years, people haven't been able to get their plaques in person, but Ken, you did. I did my year in 2019, but I got my plaque virtually. So that's my plaque. And you can see that's my advantage. That's the corner of my deck. So I overlook Lighthouse Pond and Cape May. Marty's smiling. So, and then these were some of I had 2 really cool hummingbirds that year. So this was Harvey Tomlinson's black-chinned, and then this was the Anna's hummingbird in Pennsylvania. And she was just a really nice person. You went out to her driveway, and she came out and talked to everybody. And then I had a Western kingbird, and I was actually leaving Cape May to come back up to this area, and the alert went out that there's a Western kingbird in around Cape May Point. So I turned around to try to get it on my yard list. And it was also the day of the big sit. They were doing the big sit at Cape May Point State Park. I took pictures of the bird. The next morning, Tom Johnson calls me and says, "Did you post your pictures yet?" I'm like, "No, can you send them to me?" "Sure." So here it turns out, and I always say this wrong, it was a Cassin's kingbird. So I want to say it's the first New Jersey record. So, and you know what, that's what makes this fun too, is all these like little stories. And then this one was a bunch of DVOCers. A lot of us drove separately, but we ended up meeting there and that was up in North Jersey for the boreal chickadee. Yeah, we actually, you could see 3 chickadees at the same time
I
there.
was guessing that.
That's what it
What picture
was.
is that?
Huh?
I was trying to remember, and I thought that's what that was.
That's what it was. And it was the day we went up, it was a foggy day, and it was coming to the feeders. Oh, Marty, do you remember what state park it was?
Merrill Creek. right?
Merrill Creek Reservoir.
Merrill Creek Reservoir. And so you had the feeders outside of the office there. And then you saw everybody lined up in the fog, just waiting for the bird to show up. So I know, we're,
Thankfully it did.
huh?
Thankfully it did.
It did, yes. Okay, then Debbie, in 2020, so I got to actually, so I did my big year pre-COVID. Debbie and Victoria did it during COVID. So it was an impressive list, because I mean, if you think about it, there for a while, we had to stay inside. There were no pelagic trips, you know, but the nice thing about it, that was the year where birding also became popular because you could do it outside. And so this was a Zoom only presentation. So that's Debbie's. Anything on this year?
I live in Delco and I was focusing on Delaware County.
Mhm.
And I set a record for myself in Delaware County, and I was like, okay, I did a lot of birding, and I was surprised when I did.
Yeah.
But it was great. Also, Tori, it's the first time that Tori won, and she's a young bird, third person there.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it was funny when I captured this screenshot. That's me, Art, Tori, and Greg. And then I do have some stuff from Tori. So unfortunately, she's so busy, you know, but she's one of our young birders. And what I thought was interesting is of the 272 species, she had 22 lifers. Isn't that cool? In the Delaware Valley, you know, so, and she had 296 checklists in Philadelphia with 353 overall. Marty.
So I did Billings the very first year, and I didn't win, but I got 25 likes.
Wow, that's cool. Very neat. Okay, so you can see some of the birds that she saw there. And there's Tori there. And these are all screen, this is when I was secretary and I was doing a lot of screen grabs. So I went back and found them.
I'm noticing the last thing in her, people that she's thanking, her parents.
Yes,
Tori wasn't able to drive yet. So whenever a hot bird showed up, she'd have to talk her parents into driving her there.
yes,
Including driving to Maine to capture the stellar.
yes.
Oh, the Stellar Sea Eagle, which did not go on her Billings.
Gerrymander.
Okay, BQ, this is your year, 2021. Okay, still really COVID times, unfortunately. And you also had received your plaque through Zoom. I don't know if you want to say anything about your birds, no?
I mean, it was, it's kind of funny seeing my low number 257. It was like your year, Barb. I would say I was surprised to find out that I was the winner as well. When I calculated my total and I sent it in, I kind of thought, oh, what a nice effort. And then I got the email back from Art that I was the top species total. I'm like, well, what? Couldn't believe it. But I was really proud and very happy to have done so despite 2021 still being a COVID year, but also in addition to that personally, I moved twice. I was working full time and I was in grad school. So all this was going on.
Anything else?
Well, and a new dad in 2022, I found out I could see Eagle when I got home. But the whole thing that was so surprising to me and so important to me was, even though I had all that crazy stuff going on, the birding really helped me keep a level head during what was a really challenging year for me. So, it was started the year off, like I said, up here with the tundra bean goose, which was awesome. Got a nice, beautiful glaucous gull on the left. And then I got to see the barnacle goose, which was the last bird I got to see of the year because I got COVID that same week. But I got to see the barnacle goose in Chester County, right down the street from where I live. And then I refound the barnacle goose in Delaware County on Britton Lake, right before I came
Nice.
down with Corona. So it was kind of cool that I got to end the year with a county bird in two very close counties to my heart to end my year. So it was, not a huge number compared to some of the other Billings years, but still proud of it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Very cool. And so, right, birding is a lot of fun.
Now, it's not just about the birds. Sometimes, it's almost just as fun to meet some folks when you're out there and make friends and run into folks you haven't seen in a long time. Just even seeing tonight's presentation with all these different rarities over the years, it's kind of like it's a cool trip down memory lane of, oh, I remember that bird. I remember seeing these people there, really helps mark those moments that are special.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is fun. I've said jokingly, I can't remember when I go out the door whether I locked it or not, but I can tell you where I saw every rare bird.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Right? So this is just a different way of looking at the winners. So, and it reads across. So, it goes from Mike to Ken and then Linda to Marty. And I just thought it was interesting to see it. And, as Art pointed out, we had some COVID years there. So. Okay, so by the numbers, getting to the end here. So if you look, Art keeps a very nice spreadsheet and it's fun to take a look at it and see what you can tease out of it. So cumulative species, 427. So from 2011 through this year, well, 2022 year, there have been 427 different species found. Now, if you take that number and divide it by the total number of birds on the species of the 3 states combined, you get 83%. It's actually a little bit higher than that because some of the birds on those lists are extinct. So it'll be not much higher, but I think that's pretty impressive that as a club, we've gotten, I would say, I'm guessing 85% or more of all the birds ever reported in the, that are on the list for New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware.
People ask me, why do you have extinct birds on the list? And the reason is that that's a summary of the 3 birds of the 3 states' official lists. And, Eskimo curlew is on there and so forth,
The
a few
heath hen.
others. And, I'm not going to change the state's official list. So
Mhm.
it's on there.
So
Yeah.
who does this list?
I'm sorry?
Who does this list? Who does the list, the state list?
Each state has its own official bird records committee.
And who are the people doing that? I mean, are
Well,
there-
that turns over, but if you go to the websites of the individual states, then they list the members, and they're all expert birders, not only expert in the field, but with deep knowledge of species and their movements and field marks and how to tell similar species apart and so forth. So these are real experts. And when a new bird shows up that's not on the list, then a sighting will be submitted to the Bird Records Committee. And they always require lots of documentation, field notes, photographs, sound recordings, and so forth. And they'll either say, yes, we agree with your identification, and I'll put it on the official state list, even like the black-backed oriole was only
Is that
seen
my impression?
once. It was only seen once in Pennsylvania, but it was very well documented, so it's on the state list. Or
And
if
there
they
was
say, well,
research
the documentation isn't good enough, then they don't accept it, and it does not go on.
Yeah, and like the blackback oriole, they did research to say, was that an escapee or not an escapee? There's certain birds that come up like that, Providence uncertain type deal. And like another, so the same thing happened this past year for New Jersey. How did it get on the state list? So that the New Jersey Rare Birds Record Committee, okay, the tropical kingbird that showed up in Cape May, okay, not only did they get photographs of it, they wanted to hear that bird vocalized, okay? So they put this all together, and then the tropical kingbird went on to onto the New Jersey list. I want to say it was also the Kirkland's warbler went on this year as well, same thing. So,
Then they have problems removing the extinct ones.
well, they leave it on there for historical purposes, you know, but they will say extinct.
Yeah, it used
It's-
to be there, no question about it. If it used to live in the state, it's on the state list, even if it's no longer there. Heath hen has been extinct for a century, I think,
Mhm.
but it used to be common in New Jersey. You know, so, well, greater prairie chicken is a dominant subspecies, but it used to be common in New Jersey, so.
It's just,
On the list.
as long as it was ever here, because these records go all the way back.
Oh, and on the composite list, which is posted on the website, I gave the web addresses of the 3 state official lists. And when I double checked that today, I found that 2 of the 3 states have changed their web addresses, so I will need to update that.
Okay,
What's also remarkable about this is, remember, those lists are for the entire state.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah,
And this is a restricted, area. It gives you an idea of how many overshoots there are and how, you know, how many habitats.
Yeah.
Rich habitats.
yeah, because that's a good point, because if you think about it, the whole western side of Pennsylvania, that's included in the Pennsylvania state list, but it's not included in the Billings contest, you know?
Right now, in the first years, we had a different way of determining the birds. And that is whether it's in the DVOC checklist, which was written up by the DVOC checklist committee, and that includes only the local area. It became so complicated. It just became unwieldy and unduly complicated.
Yeah.
Everybody hated it, so we changed the rules. And by the way, the committee will take suggestions, you know, from within the committee or just the general membership, and most of the suggestions, changes have come from people who are doing the event. And then we discuss it and we vote on it, and you know, using the amendment procedures which are specified in the rules. And so we have made many tweaks in the rules. When the rules are changed, then, to be fair, the changed rules don't take effect until the following year. We're not going to change a rule,
Yeah.
you know, in the middle of the year.
Yeah, makes sense. So if you take a look at all the winners, okay, and all the co-winners separately, okay, there have been, each of the winners had 213 of the same birds. Okay, so if you look at their totals, 213 of them are exactly alike. There are 40 species that were seen by only once, by only one person, you know, during that. I mean, they're seen by more people, but as far as the people that year's billing, okay, it's only one. And Debbie, the only reason I have you in terms of 8 and then 9, that's because you won twice. So like if you add them both together, you get 9. The one year you
I was
had
gonna
8.
say the 2020 yellow rail was the singular of 2020, all the other ones were 2017.
Exactly. So that's why it's in parentheses. The last year that a new species was added to the list was Ken's hermit warbler. That was the first time the hermit warbler was on the list. And here's a question.
Barb, it says 2017. Yeah.
Huh?
Let's say 2022, next to the hermit warbler,
Where?
right-hand column, bottom.
Oh, sorry, over here or in the here? Oh, yeah, you know what? I was copying. Sorry. Oh, yeah, I see it. Good eyes, right? But yeah, look, don't look here, look to the right. Okay, 2022 hermit warbler, Ken Walsh. So here's a question. Has there ever been a year where no new species has been added to the cumulative list? And the answer, yep, a lot of people here are going, no. So every year we have at least one, and sometimes in some years we have more than one that are added to that cumulative list. So 2021, there was 426, now there's 427. Oh. And here we go. This was the question two. Co-winners, same birds? Nope. So with Patty and Linda, okay, there were only 4 differences in the species. But with Tori and Deb, they had 20 differences between the 2 of them, but all adding up to the same overall total. I thought it was interesting. Thanks, Art.
Yeah, and there's a key difference there. When Patty and Linda won, they were both competing and they were competing against each other and they knew it. And then they said, hey, let's forget the competition. Let's bird together. So they birded together. So that's why most of their birds were the same. Now, in the case of Tori and Deb, it was different. Either one, I don't know if you knew that each other were.
No.
Plus 2, wasn't it COVID?
It was COVID, yeah, I just submitted the list.
And for quite a while, I thought Deb had won. She handed in her list. And she had the top number. And then at the 11th hour, it was like EQ and Wolves. At the 11th hour, then Tori sent in her list and she said, I don't know if this is enough birds for anything, but, and I said, you've tied Deb. So it wasn't until the end, they were birding together.
Yeah, interesting. And that makes more sense why there's so many differences in the birds. So,
So I have a quick question.
yes.
How many people actually bird in a year? For this prize?
That is hard to say. That is hard to say. And I'll give you a more ancient history. In like the first or second year that the competition was going, and there were all of these people who were vying for it. And a number of the participants said, you know, we don't want some dark horse to come in on December 31st, someone that we don't know is trying to do this event and come in with top things. So we should require everybody to sign up. So, okay, we inserted that rule. And we required everybody to sign up by March 31st, I think it was. So then we knew how many people were doing it. But after a while, it became, you know, come on, guys, you don't have to sign up. If you're a member for the whole year, you can do it. And so at the end of the year, I just send out, you know, lots of announcements. I say, send in your number, you know, and if you're among the top, then we'll ask for your list. So there could be lots of people who are birding and are thinking of doing the event, but then at the end of the year, they look at their list, they've got 150 species. So we don't know how many are doing. I only know who sends, you know, who has a high number and sends in their list.
And so with that, go birding, keep good notes, all right? Remember, lead a trip. You don't have to do this solo, lead a trip. Get out there, mentor a new birder. And I want to thank you to everyone who helped me with the presentation, including the chairperson of the DVOC, the Billings, the roofs, and all the participants that sent me, the winners that sent me their things. So thanks, guys. It was fun. Who's this?